You don't just have power, you have his power.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and I'm here to talk about the one sentence that I think kind of ruined Star Wars.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Nope, not that one. We'll get to that sentence in a minute. Now, just a reminder though, before we get started, we have new merch and a live show tour coming up that I'm going to tell you about later in the video. Very excited about both of those things. So, have you guys ever had a moment that kind of broke your brain and like completely upended the veil separating fantasy and reality? Maybe it was the first time you saw Jim Henson working a Muppet and you realized that Kermit wasn't real. Or maybe you had this realization about professional wrestling or soap operas.
No, what do you mean?
Well, for example, I used to always think of Marvel Comics as like one giant story that was just kind of always going on. I mean, I knew that all of those events were fiction, but I guess I thought of it more like the writers and artists were reporting on those events and not making them up as they went along. Now, for me, Star Wars always lived in that same space. Now, I know it's just a movie, but the saga had an appeal because it felt like we were watching some great story that was playing out somewhere else. Even the marketing always reinforced this idea.
Somewhere in space, this may all be happening right now.
George Lucas created a universe that felt so lived in that the saga felt real in a way that, well, frankly, other franchises just don't.
It's all real.
Oh my god, I knew it! I knew it! I knew it!
So this is called theatrical immersion. It's like when you're so engrossed in a play, you forget that you're watching actors on stage. Or, you know, it's like how I feel after jumping on a trampoline.
Jeff, you've been up there for an hour.
And I think on some level, every Star Wars fan feels this way. For example, the appeal of the sequel trilogy was that we wanted to see what Han, Luke, and Leia had been up to in the past 30 or so years. Nobody thought, oh, I want to see what the writers came up with. We just wanted to see the character story continued, as if they were real people who were off living their own lives. I mean, after all, Star Wars is extremely personal to people because we did continue this story ourselves by playing with our action figures.
Now I know the Force is with us.
Star Wars has always walked this fine line between reality and fantasy. In the original trilogy, for instance, Lucas disguised his anti-Vietnam War sentiment by making the Viet Cong the good guys of his blockbuster.
The good guys are the rebels?
When I did it, they were Viet Cong.
Exactly. So were you thinking of that at the time?
Yes.
Whereas in the sequels, his progressive politics were a bit less disguised. For instance, there was a bad guy named Newt Gunray, a stand-in for Republican politicians Newt Gingrich and Ronald Reagan, and of course we had Bush-era lines like this.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists.
But more importantly, the clunky dialogue and overuse of CGI in the prequels pulled people out of the story and made us fully aware that we were watching a movie. Instead of thinking that we were watching a fairy tale set far, far away, we realized,
Hey, this isn't Star Wars. This is just some guy writing stuff down.
So when we break from a story like this, it is a form of theatrical meta-awareness. Now this is a term that normally describes when an actor breaks the fourth wall to acknowledge that they are a character in a story, like Deadpool, Zach Morris, or Puck.
Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends.
When a character performs a form of meta-awareness, it often removes dramatic stakes from the story because, you know, it undermines those stakes. For instance, how can we worry about She-Hulk's social life when Jennifer Walters can literally rewrite her own reality?
Well, can we not do Todd gets Hulk powers?
Erasing blood clot.
However, those are all examples where the character intentionally breaks the fourth wall to engender some kind of connection to the audience.
Wasn't talking to you. I was talking to them.
But sometimes a work of art can be so bad or so misguided that it's painfully obvious that you are watching a movie.
How much is it?
It'll be $18.
Here you go. Keep the change. Hi, doggy.
You're my favorite customer.
So this has the effect of decentering when an audience is pulled out of the story. Instead of focusing on the art, we're focused on our own experience of watching this art. For example, if you're watching this scene in Attack of the Clones, instead of listening to what Anakin is saying, you're wondering why Hayden Christensen shakes his shoulders every time he speaks.
I like 2 or 3, but I'm not really sure about one of them.
Yeah, I didn't like Last Jedi. Why was old man Luke so grumpy?
Sure, seeing Luke Skywalker as a broken old man didn't align with that heroic Jedi we played with for all of those years.
Careful, Luke, we've got company!
Even though, in Johnson's thoughtful narrative, he was careful to distinguish between Luke Skywalker the person,
because I was Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, a legend,
and Luke Skywalker the idea.
Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master.
But I digress.
Person?
Person. Person! What?
Were you thinking about Lord of the Rings again?
Yeah, did you know that Viggo Mortensen broke his toe when he kicked that helmet?
Well, no, because actually I have never seen Lord of the Rings.
How have you never seen Lord of the Rings? It's one of the greatest franchises of all time.
Well, yeah, but every time I try to watch it, it's not on any of the many streaming services that I pay for.
Oh yeah, dude, I get that 100%. You guys have probably felt the same frustration, right? You already subscribe to like a dozen streaming services, but the one thing you want to watch is not streaming on any of them. But here's the thing, that show or movie that you want to watch probably is streaming on your service, just not in the US. Like for instance, Lord of the Rings is not on Netflix in America, but it is in Australia. So you can use NordVPN to change your IP address to Australia, and there you have it, you can watch Lord of the Rings on Netflix.
G'day, hobbits.
NordVPN has so many cool features, and this is why I have been a loyal NordVPN customer for years now. Like you can add up to 6 devices on your account, so you can do this on mobile, TV, or your desktop. And now NordVPN is offering an amazing Black Friday deal through our link below, nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush. When you sign up now, you get a huge discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 additional months for free. But NordVPN is also great for cybersecurity. They offer something called threat protection, which deletes shady downloads before they finish. And their ad blocker is so great that it's the only ad blocker I use. Again, save yourself some money, keep yourself protected, and help support our channel by clicking the link below to get a special Black Friday discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 additional bonus months for free at nordvpn/ScreenCrush. You won't regret it. I've been using this service for years. It is amazing. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, for me, I can actually point to one moment that destroyed my conception of Star Wars. Now, I'm not saying this moment ruined Star Wars for me. I clearly still love Star Wars. But this moment did ruin the illusion that I was watching a grand story that was playing out across the centuries. Now, look, Rise of Skywalker gets a lot of crap for this line.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And a lot of that crap came from me. It's why we made our Somehow Palpatine Returns t-shirt. But the thing is, that line is actually a narrative shortcut that was necessary to tell the story of that movie. Now, look, ideally, Disney and J.J. Abrams would have set up the return of Palpatine in a previous movie instead of setting it up in Fortnite.
The day of revenge. The day of the Sith.
But look, you work with what you have. The movie was about Palpatine returning, and it's not really important how. We can let the Disney Plus shows and the novels explain all of that. No, the line that broke me was this.
You are a Palpatine.
Ah, God, and frankly, it's still really hard to watch.
You are a Palpatine.
Colton, stop playing that.
Oh, sorry.
So I want to dive deep into this line and explore why it was such a very, very bad idea. And to do that, I have to talk about the sequel trilogy, Rey's arc as a character, and how Rey, and not Luke, was meant to represent the actual audience who was watching these films. And we're also going to get into the behind-the-scenes nonsense that led up to this reveal that, for me, almost ruined Star Wars. So let's look at Rey's arc, starting with The Force Awakens. Now, obviously, this movie is more of a soft reboot of A New Hope. It hits all the same story beats, right down to the orphan who earns a hardscrabble living off the desert. I don't know if you guys remember, but as soon as they cast Daisy Ridley as Rey, we all started up with the fan theories. She looks kind of like Carrie Fisher, so we assumed that she would be Han and Leia's daughter.
A reasonable assumption, person.
Sure, but in the first movie, instead, we find out that she was abandoned by her parents. Now, on a meta-theatrical level, the movie was also raising a question. Who is this person, and how does she fit into this larger story? We're used to Star Wars characters having a secret lineage to other Star Wars characters. So we tried to figure out this puzzle. Was Rey a secret Kenobi or a secret Skywalker who had her mind wiped by the Force? But the genius of Rey's ambiguous past is that it also made her the perfect audience proxy. Just as she is wondering how she fits into this story, we're all wondering how we're going to fit into this new trilogy. Where will we see ourselves? What heroes will resonate with our kids, like Luke resonated with us? Which action figures are we going to buy first? Rey is an audience proxy because, well, like us, she's a Star Wars fan. She holds everything about the original trilogy in high reverence.
This is a Millennium Falcon. You're Han Solo.
Even when she hears Luke's name, she responds like she just got into an elevator with Mark Hamill at Comic-Con.
Luke Skywalker. I thought he was a myth.
And not for nothing, her co-protagonist of the series is Kylio Ren, and he is a major Darth Vader fanboy, even with his own collectibles. And speaking of Darth Vader collectibles, I am so excited to finally get to show you guys this merch that we've designed for our merch sale. This is one of my personal favorites. It shows a Darth Vader figure from Vulcan in Cloud City, a parody of this.
My name is Darth Vader.
We also have Grogu giving a little boop to the nose of a Rancor. Here's another one of my favorites. Evil will always triumph because good is dumb. And we also have fun Marvel parodies like Tony granting life to Ultron, a parody of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. This I Hate You 3000 with Iron Man Mark 1 armor wearing Doom's cloak, the Loki Gator coming out of the toilet, and a fun new ScreenCrush collection. You can actually sign up for our newsletter so you get alerts every time we do like a big merch drop. We're going to do a holiday sale soon. It's a lot of fun. And we also announce all that stuff on our free Discord server where I had so much fun geeking out with you guys the other night when we did a rewatch of The Last Jedi together. Also, as long as we're hanging out, come see us at our ScreenCrush live shows. We have 2 more shows this year, one in Chicago, one in Washington, D.C. We're going to nerd out. We're going to meet each other. We're going to make a ScreenCrush video together. It is going to be so much fun. The links for all that stuff is below. Also, guys, we are having a Black Friday sale for our tour. Use the code SCTOUR for 20% off tickets for any show, even the shows that are next year. This is a huge deal available only through Cyber Monday, so act fast. Thank you for listening to these plugs. I really appreciate it. So, the characters in these new movies, right, like the filmmakers, are all huge fans of the original trilogy. J.J. Abrams approached The Force Awakens with a kind of reverence, desperate to not change or alter the saga in any way. In fact, the movie kind of plays like it's made by a kid reenacting movie scenes with his action figures.
Not so fast, Helmet. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
You can even hear this in the way he talked when they began filming.
Day 1 of Star Wars Episode 7.
You're here.
How incredible is that?
But all of this is how we can perceive the movie on that meta-theatrical level. It's the experience of knowing that we're watching a movie and knowing all of our own emotional baggage that comes with any new Star Wars film.
Nothing's changed, really. I mean, everything's changed, but nothing's changed. That's the way you want it to be, really.
But separate your perception of this movie. On a theatrical level, this is a story about a young woman who has one primary goal in this film: to find out who her parents were and what happened to them. That is her driving motivation, to be reunited with her family. So, in The Last Jedi, when she decides to join the Resistance, she's actually sacrificing her own desires for the greater good. The Last Jedi immediately puts a few Rey fan theories to bed. When Luke meets her, it's clear he has no idea why this person has just shown up at his hut. Rey, like us, is somebody who is searching for her place in this story.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
And then we get to her vision in the cave. Now, in The Empire Strikes Back, Luke's cave vision was a kind of a reinvention of a tribal vision quest. When a young warrior would venture into the wilderness alone, sometimes drop a peyote button, and then come home as an enlightened man.
I've grown up a lot since before dinner when we last talked.
In Luke's vision, he was seeking a way to defeat Vader, to get vengeance for the deaths of his family, Obi-Wan, and his father. But instead, his vision revealed that his quest for vengeance would only hurt himself, while also foreshadowing his personal connection to Darth Vader.
No, I am your father.
So, Rey's vision would then have to reflect her desires. In this case, her selfish desire is to get to see her parents. Now, in the cave, she sees these endless copies of herself. She is looking for some secret ancestor, some destiny that would tell her what to do. Now, this is just like how, on that larger meta-theatrical level, we are trying to slot Rey into a category. We want our fan theory to pan out. Oh, she's a Kenobi, or oh, she's Luke's secret daughter. And just as Rey should be looking within herself, Star Wars fans shouldn't be trying to connect her to an existing character. We should just accept that she is her own person. She is a new character. Because as soon as we attach her to a notable family in the saga, like the Skywalkers, we then expect her to fall into some kind of category. For instance, Luke and Kylio Ren both descended from Anakin, and because Anakin fell to the dark side, we also expected his progeny to at least be tempted to do the same. So if Rey were, say, the granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi, then we would expect her to be there to redeem Kylio Ren. Just as Obi-Wan couldn't redeem Anakin, it would make sense for his theoretical granddaughter Rey to redeem Anakin's grandson. So if Rey was attached to a character in the saga, it would mean that she would automatically have some meaning attached to the legacy of a different character. But in her vision, instead of Rey seeing her family like Harry Potter looking into the mirror of Erised, she just sees herself. Rian Johnson has said that this is meant to show that Rey has to stop looking outside of herself for an answer and instead to look within. And later, we find out why, because it turns out her parents were a-holes.
They were filthy junk traders who sold you off for drinking money.
And by extension, this means that Rey is no one. She's Rey nobody. Now, on a theatrical level, this is the most devastating news that Rey could have gotten. She is somebody who longs for family and finds out that she has no family and that nobody loves her. Just as, when Vader revealed that he was Luke's father, there was nothing Darth Vader could have said or done that would have hurt Luke more. Luke had just spent 2 films talking about his dad and idolizing him, and then he finds out his dad is a murderer. Now, Kylio Ren is the opposite. He has everything that Rey wants. wants. He has family, historic connections, and love, but he wants to throw it all away. And he wants her to do the same, to burn her attachments.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
And look, in my opinion, Rian Johnson got way too meta-theatrical with this because he's obviously offering his treatise on Star Wars fandom. He's telling us, the fans, to stop obsessing over the original trilogy and to just move on. This is why Johnson destroyed Luke's lightsaber. This meant that Rey could no longer rely on the stories of the past, and instead, she now had to tell her own story. I love the Rey nobody reveal so much. It is so much more satisfying than any fan theory we could have come up with. It is simple, it is elegant, and it puts the character of Rey ahead of world building. This moment expanded my conception of what Star Wars could be. It turns out that everything doesn't have to be tied back to the original movies, and not everybody has to be an ancestor to somebody else. Anybody, even a nobody, can rise up to be a hero.
Even me?
Even you. And this is why I thought The Rise of Skywalker was so insulting. It systematically undid several of Johnson's decisions. The lightsaber is reforged without explanation. Kylio Ren reforges his mask. Rose is quickly and quite embarrassingly written out. And to that point, Rey is back to seeking attachments to the Jedi of the past. So the meta-theatrical lesson of The Last Jedi, to leave the past behind and forge your own path forward, is quickly swept under the rug. But of course, the worst element that Rise of Skywalker introduced was this, the line that ruined my conception of Star Wars.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. I meant this line.
You are a Palpatine.
Okay, so we finally arrived at the moment. Let's break this line down. We're going to look at how this twist came about behind the scenes and how it works within the story of the movie, and most important, for me at least, how it wrecks Star Wars. First, behind the scenes. You should know that Rey being a Palpatine was not always the plan, and Palpatine returning was also not always the plan. Colin Trevorrow's original script for Episode 9, which you can read online by the way, had no trace of Palpatine returning. Daisy Ridley also confirmed to USA Today writer Soraya Wilson that for the first two films, she was told that Rey was nobody. She played her that way. And on Jimmy Kimmel, she told Josh Gad that there were some plans or some discussion to even make Rey a Kenobi.
Oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaddy. And I was like, awesome. And then 2 weeks later, he was like, oh, we're not sure. So it kept changing.
Now, I'm telling you all this so you understand that after Last Jedi, behind the scenes, Disney was their pants. Like, Lucasfilm loved The Last Jedi so much, they signed Rian Johnson on for a whole trilogy, but then the backlash to that film made them question their own judgment. That is why they outsourced Episode 9 to J.J. Abrams' company, Bad Robot. Basically, the studio was drenched in flop sweat and wanted Abrams to land their trilogy in time to meet its Disney-mandated release date.
Wait, are you saying you don't like Lucasfilm?
No, actually, let me clarify something up top here. I am not criticizing the creatives at Lucasfilm. I think that they are people who are passionate about Star Wars, and in the past 10 years, they have delivered incredible work on projects like The Mandalorian, Clone Wars, Andor, God willing, Skeleton Crew. In this video, I am specifically talking about the decisions that Disney, J.J. Abrams, and his co-writer Chris Terrio made when they created Rise of Skywalker. So, Abrams and Terrio, who, by the way, gave us this little nugget. Martha! These filmmakers brought back Palpatine because they wanted to achieve continuity with the entire saga. They saw Star Wars primarily as a family feud between the Palpatines and the Skywalkers. At a screening of Rise of Skywalker, Terrio said, the Skywalker-Palpatine family dynasty/tragedy, like any kind of tragedy between two houses, was deep in the DNA of Star Wars, so we knew that Palpatine had to be present in the film in some way. Now, to me, this is an incredibly dumb, short-sighted view of what makes Star Wars awesome. If we follow this train of logic to its end conclusion, it would mean that we can never tell stories outside of that 60-year period when Palpatine and Anakin were both around. Star Wars is not just their story, it's our story, to be told and retold through the eyes of thousands of characters and creators. But whatever. They brought back Palpatine, and I will admit, the passing of Carrie Fisher was very difficult on everyone, and I think Abrams did a very good job with leftover footage from The Force Awakens. Why, thank you! You're welcome, J.J. Abrams.
Hey, wait a minute, is that me?
No, you are two different puppets. The point is that all of the behind-the-scenes problems at Lucasfilm and Disney were apparent on screen. As I said earlier, this was an act of decentering us. It called attention to the fact that we were watching a movie, made by a nervous studio that was terrified of tanking the biggest franchise in the world. world. But the problem is, JJ, you didn't have to connect the return of Palpatine to Rey. Rey didn't spend the past couple of movies wondering about her grandfather or trying to fight some kind of darkness within her. In The Last Jedi, she did have an incredibly powerful connection to the Force, including the dark side. But it's not like she actively feared her own evil nature. Whereas, in the original trilogy, Luke was always temperamental, reckless, and arrogant. There was a real threat that he could fall to the dark side that was foreshadowed throughout the entire trilogy.
You are reckless.
But Rise of Skywalker rushed to add in all these new character traits for Rey. The scene where she fake kills Chewbacca could have been amazing if, one, he had actually died, and two, if there was absolutely any indication before that she was in any danger of falling to the dark side. Accidentally killing Chewbacca with the dark side of the Force is a very interesting idea that frankly should have happened in the middle chapter of the story. So if this story is now about Rey running away from her legacy of being a Palpatine, well then we already saw that story. That was Luke's story in Return of the Jedi when he was scared of turning into his father. In fact, the visual metaphor of the severed hand is what turned him to the good side at the end of the film. Now narratively, Rey Palpatine is also just a far too complicated plot point. Whereas Rey Nobody was elegant with its simplicity, Rey Palpatine basically requires hours of explanation. Now, the movie doesn't actually bother to explain this, so we have to see Palpatine's clone plan explained in The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch, and the novelization. So, in case you don't know, the plan they actually came up with is that Rey's dad was a defective Palpatine clone that ran away from home. This is just way too complicated. They could have just, like, if you had to do it, JJ, you could have just made Rey be a defective clone and like she was stolen and sold by two people who were posing as her parents. Then the multiple visions of her in the cave would have represented other clones. We also got that weird vision, like in the Death Star, where she sees a reflection of her evil self. But again, this was not set up in any of the other movies. This seemed like it was just trying to re-explain the cave vision from Last Jedi to show us, oh no, that vision was actually about Rey fearing she would become evil. And by the way, JJ, you had some nerve using clones to save your narrative after you put this line in The Force Awakens.
Perhaps Leader Snoke should consider using a clone army.
My men are exceptionally trained, programmed from birth.
And especially considering The Force Awakens was supposed to be a palate cleanser after the prequels. I mean, the first line of the prequel trilogy was even.
This will begin to make things right.
Actually, yeah, that's pretty fair. Sorry if I keep harping on this, guys, but I'm doing this to show you that when they did this reveal that she was a Palpatine, it made no sense. It just made the audience question what was going on screen and made us aware that we were watching a movie. For instance, there was never a Mrs. Sheev Palpatine, so it was just a narrative mess that had us sitting there and trying to figure it out. Did Palpatine have sex? Where was his secret wife? Who was this grandkid? Where'd she come from? Again, guys, when you're watching a movie, you don't want to be sitting there trying to figure out minute details like, hey, who did Palpatine have sex with?
Disgusting!
And then the movie has to do all these weird narrative backflips to make this reveal work. Like that vision in the Death Star that I mentioned earlier. Or like, remember, when Luke first met Rey, it was apparent he had no idea who this person was.
Who are you?
But suddenly he says,
because you're a Palpatine. Leia knew it too.
Guys, this is not Luke Skywalker explaining something to Rey. This is a screenwriter explaining something to the audience. Now, I should also note that the idea of Palpatine having a granddaughter wasn't even that original. It was in the Star Wars Junior novel, Lost City of the Jedi. So, on a meta-theatrical level, the Rey Palpatine reveal tanked the movie and just left us sitting there wondering, wait, how does this actually work? But that Palpatine reveal didn't just undermine the Rey is nobody idea from Last Jedi, it also undermined her most important character moment from Last Jedi. Remember, the real twist wasn't that she was nobody, it's that her parents were a-holes.
Watch your profanity.
But in this movie, it's revealed that her parents actually loved her. Like Jenny Nicholson posted once, it's like if in the last 20 minutes of episode 6, Luke found out that Vader wasn't his father was a hero, is dead, and also Palpatine is his grandfather. So Rey, finding out she was a Palpatine, didn't hit the character as hard as that reveal in episode 8, but this reveal sure punched me right in the gut. Now, as I explained, I love the reveal that Rey is nobody. It expanded on Star Wars. The Palpatine reversal, on the other hand, made Star Wars shrink. The galaxy became smaller. Like Chris Terrio said, it becomes a story about a couple of families instead of a story about found families. The moment Kylio Ren said those words,
you are a Palpatine,
it fully dawned on me that none of this was planned out. This was just like a couple of guys on a laptop writing stuff down, regardless of the continuity of the stories that came before. This moment made me realize that Star Wars was just a movie. Rise of Skywalker was the first time I ever saw Star Wars as a product that was made just to make money. Now look, there's nothing wrong with making money from your art. We're making money from this video. We're selling merch and live show tickets and all that stuff I talked about earlier. But why can't we also make money while telling stories that are personal and mean more than just the bottom line? The original movies were all personal to George Lucas, so they resonated with us on a personal level. But what about these new characters like Rey? Rey could have been the new symbol of Star Wars fandom, a character that represents how any of us can be part of this story. However, Abrams instead forces Rey to carry the legacy of others when she takes on a new name.
I'm Rey. Rey who? Rey Skywalker.
So this clunky ending is actually appropriate for the film, you know, for a studio that is forcing this franchise to never ever move on from 3 movies that were made almost half a century ago. Now, I'm not saying I hate the original trilogy or that I hate Star Wars or even that I hate J.J. Abrams. I think the guy makes really good movies, and clearly I love Star Wars. Rise of Skywalker even has its high points, like this guy. It's also an incredibly well-made film with like one of the all-time best casts in any Star Wars project. And I also want to say that there are tons of younger Star Wars fans out there who love these movies because to them, this is their version of Star Wars. And I am not saying they are wrong. I'm just talking about how I personally feel about that one line in this one movie that ruined Star Wars for me.
Ruined it. I ruined it.
Because that line in Rise of Skywalker turned me into a Star Wars cynic, but I don't want to be a cynic. I want to be optimistic about this saga. I want Rey to be a character and not a product. I want her to be a person, not intellectual property. And I want Star Wars to expand my horizons. I want Star Wars to make me excited for everything that lies beyond. I want Star Wars to feel familiar and new, to combine myth and science fiction in a new way that resonates in the modern age. I want Star Wars to fill me with possibility and hope, whereas the Rise of Skywalker just wanted Star Wars to sell me shit. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Skywalker.